All right, so it's the end of the day here at Kraus Marketing, and we decided to sit down with our two favorite employees, or two of our favorite employees, to talk a little bit about more of what they do here and what we do at Kraus Marketing. But since it's the year of the wipe down, I figured we should get started here properly.
Let's wipe it down.
Wipe it down. Oh, keep everything sanitary here.
Very concerned about hygiene.
Hygiene's important. Here, you want a little schmutz? There you go.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
Thanks, boss.
So,
Perfect. Smells great.
I guess really we could start off with really how long, Rick, you've been here?
Around 5 years.
5 years, and tell us a little bit about what you do here. You're one of our senior designers.
So I started as a junior graphic designer and worked my way up to senior designer. So I overlook the branding side of our department, focusing on working with clients to lay out all their branding, come up with branding campaigns and doing all the visuals.
Awesome. And Bohdana, here a little bit longer than Rick. How long have you been around?
Yes, I've been here now for 7 years.
Awesome. And Bohdana is our art director. What do you do here, Bohdana?
I oversee all artwork that goes in and out of our doors, make sure that it's clean and polished, make sure that their message from the branding team is getting carried across all of our work, and I also manage our junior graphic designers on staff and freelancers and whatnot.
Awesome. So every time we sit down at 40 Pints, we actually get to have a drink together. And Donna got to choose the drink. So what did we choose today, Donna?
I chose the claws. You guys okay with that?
Let's drink them.
You girls okay with that?
Okay, baby. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh.
Oh.
Can you do the same thing? So actually, raspberry is my second favorite. I like lime a little bit better, but this is excellent.
I got the raspberry too.
What's your favorite? Is that your favorite?
I would say from this brand, raspberry.
And then what about you?
Yeah.
Well, I did grapefruit because everyone hates grapefruit, and I think it's just
Take one for the team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's all a lie. I think everyone really likes it, but it's a whole group think. They think, oh, we should all hate that one. So everyone hates it.
Yeah.
So it's fine. It's good.
But you don't hate it.
I don't hate it. It tastes like all the other
in
ones.
its own way. Yes.
Exactly.
So speaking of building brands, White Claw is pretty interesting. They've done very well, kind of exploded on the scene just a year ago. Donna, you've actually said that you kind of did some research on it. Tell us a little bit more about why you think that White Claw became so powerful when they really weren't. They weren't the first ones that started this.
Right. Actually, got me thinking lately as to why certain brands, especially copycat brands, that's what I like to call them, copycat brands, they do exact same thing as the originals, but why are they more successful? Like why are their companies become memes and grow insanely? And I thought that this came to mind specifically because they weren't the originals. However, they're the most known.
Right.
The original was, I've got a visual here, was Spike Seltzer. So Spike Seltzer was started around 2016 from a man named Nick Shields. He comes from a long line of Anheuser-Busch brewing family. Yeah, so he worked for Sam Adams for all these years, so big line of brewers, but he walked into a dive bar one day and 5 women ordered 5 vodka sodas, and he said, why isn't this in a can? So he went to his garage, came up with 100 different recipes, and came up with Spike Seltzer. So this is that original brand. We've got the mermaid logo, got the typical flavors of grapefruit, lime, like orange, so then the copycat brand comes in, it's White Claw. So why is White Claw so much more popular, and how did they blow them out of the water so much that they had to rebrand completely into a different brand, which is now Bon and Viv Seltzer, and so much that they had to buy the first Super Bowl ad spot in 2019, which is probably the most expensive Super Bowl spot.
They bought the first.
They bought it in 2019. They were the first ad in 2019 Super Bowl with their new brand Bon and Viv. So why did this happen? Why did White Claw trump them out? So my theory is White Claw kept it simple. They have instead of these longer names, we threw my visual, instead of the West Indy Lime, or I think that my opinion is that these longer names resonate with a more mature crowd. And then White Claw is simple: raspberry, lime, grapefruit.
I mean, let's face it too, the can is just cooler looking.
Yeah.
If we're looking at the two cans, I mean, it's...
So we've got mermaids here, which resonates with more of a feminine crowd. And then we've got these cool waves, which is definitely going to resonate more with a male crowd.
Yeah.
So men were more apt to drink this as opposed to these mermaids.
Even the raspberry goes less pink, where this goes super pink, right?
Yes.
So, and for the grapefruit, where it goes more of an orange,
So yeah,
this goes pink. So we're maybe a male, drinking that would be a little bit self-conscious that's possible.
Right.
I also think, though, going back to naming, I mean, White Claw is a pretty cool name. Like,
Yeah, whenever you're going to put claw in a name,
And like
people are going to go.
even the logo, a mermaid is in the ocean. White Claw is the ocean.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And the key takeaway from this is White Claw kept it simple, and branding is not just a logo. It's about naming, it's about flavor names, it's about the can design, it's about keeping things simple. And I think a younger crowd definitely resonated with White Claw as opposed to a more mature brand names like West Indy River Lime, as opposed to that.
Yeah,
so
right?
honestly, I think that's my take.
Yeah.
One thing they did too is they used to be 5% alcohol. The
6%.
6%, and then they went to 4.5. So I stopped buying them. Not doing that.
They're not the only brands that. So this is like kind of a unique thing. We're not that unique actually. Thing where there's brands that come in that went into a marketplace that already exists. Now, seltzers are actually brand new to in the last 2 years, right? But there's other brands that come in after years of companies being around. So like Dollar Shave Club. Right? They came in. Now they did it completely different. So they were kind of one of the first D2C or direct to customer type of companies. But the Gillettes of the world that were spending all this money, or that brand specifically, are now struggling to even compete.
Yeah, when it's just a razor. It's literally the same product.
So not only did they kind of make it simple, Dollar Shave Club, you know exactly what they do, right? But they also made it easy for you to get to the product as well. So there was a little bit of whatever invention there too, which I think is cool. But then there's other companies that come in that are crushing it too. There's one that I think it's like the Bark Box. Yeah. And they're killing like Petco.
Yeah.
Right? But now with those two I just named, there's hundreds others that are mocks or wannabe or challenger brands, and they're not doing as well. And I really think it comes down to naming. And it's not always first to market. It's what you do once you get to market.
Right.
And how good you become.
This really resonated with me because, I'm a graphic designer, very visual person, not very analytical, but money and stock market shifts and brands, they interest me because it's about what brand is doing it better.
Right.
And that influences design a lot. It's about sales.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you look back 30 or 40 years ago, Apple, kind of hit the market in the early 80s, and they were the PC killer. But it really took to the early 2000s before they really just started to take over, as far as being the cool brand. And now we know it's one of the biggest brands out there.
That's my spiel.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So being a designer, I know there's a lot of, hopefully, a lot of graphic designers that are either currently in the industry or trying to get into the industry, thinking of going to school or at school. So being a designer, I used to be a designer, as you guys know. Still would like to call myself a designer, and just don't get to sit in that seat that often or ever anymore. It's a fun job for sure, but there's also some stressful parts. But let's start off with the fun part. So Rick, why don't you tell me what your kind of like favorite parts about being a graphic designer are?
I would say my favorite part, I mean, obviously the concept development, coming up with the ideas, really just sitting there and trying to crank out really beautiful ideas and make them look great. But I would say my favorite part of the entire process is actually the presentation, the actual meeting with the client and presenting the work that you just spent a few months working on. Because, it's one thing just showing it to them, but you really have to explain them through why you did what you did and, call back to original meetings of why, you came up with all these ideas. And it's really, kind kind of storytelling in a sense, where you're going through every single element and making sure that they understand where they came from, because it's not about just slapping a few colors on a page and calling it a day. There's a strategic reason why we choose what we choose,
for sure,
and do it. And it's kind of you get hyped up. So
Yeah.
like you're always like kind of ready. You never know if they're gonna like it or not.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always confident that objectively we're doing good design. We're following the rules.
Right.
We present really nice various concepts that provide a lot of variety to them, but you know, in the end, it's a subjective choice on their side.
Sure is.
So it's selling it, and kind of you just kind of have to go. It's showtime, you know, like you said.
No, I agree. See, that was always a kind of a tougher part for me, because I, you know, had so much, and even when I still help present or I'm in the concept meetings with you guys, it's stressful for me in the way that I really want them to fall in love with something and like something. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think one thing we talk to our clients about is that it is a business decision, right? Like, this is business, and does this represent your brand really well? And I think that does it follow the great rules of design or best practices, right? And I think we consult our clients very well in that way, but I'm surprised that you said that was your funnest part, because to me that was definitely like, as much as after they choose something, that's the funnest part for me. But like that moment of like walking in and being like, waiting for them to talk, talk after you just present it. Like if I was a sweater, I'd be having beads of sweat rolling down my face.
Kind of calm.
Yeah, you're trying to be cool and be like, nah, it's all good. But like in your head, you're like, are they gonna really like something here?
I'm kind of disconnecting myself as far as like the emotions of their reaction, because obviously, you know, they're gonna say what they're gonna say, whether they like it or not. You know, that's all up to them. But I think the moment before actually presenting it, it's the most stressful one. But it's kind of like, you know, the calm after the storm.
I mean, I don't know why it would be stressful either, though. I mean, one thing I always tell our business development guys and, you know, our potential clients is that design is where we always nail it. Like 99.9 times out of 100, you're going to walk out of that concept meeting and be very excited about where this is going. And that once in a year type of meeting, don't worry, we're going to take care of it and we'll go back to the drawing board. But that's just so rare that I don't know why I would be concerned, but it just always was a stress. I think it's, you know what, it's the passion that goes into creating it in that moment, and all the work you did, staying up till midnight, or, you know, working on like just aligning things just perfectly for hours, and, you know, choosing between colors and looking at why you're going to pick this font over another. I think all that time, it's really a lot of invested effort to hoping.
There's almost almost a sense of power that we have over these somewhat powerful professionals sitting in that room. You know, you look at professions like lawyers as being like a powerful job, you know, and the kind of graphic designers is like, oh, they're artsy, they're just artists, but we have the power over them at that point, because we're saying, no, this is what you should do. Yeah. So that's kind of exciting. Like we kind of have that breaking point.
What would be we do, and I agree with that. What would you say is like kind of the more stressful part of being a graphic designer? So for people that are like, oh, well, I get to go in there and just sit in front of my computer and maybe I sketch something up and then I, you know, make it into digital art. What would, you know, that might be, you know, nice, and that is true, but there are some stressful parts.
I would say personally, like confidence, because you're sitting at that computer and going, are people going to like it? Are people going to think this is stupid? Like, is this going to resonate well? That's the number one, I think, self-confidence, just sitting there making sure people are going to love it. Yeah. Deadlines for sure. Yeah. Deadlines. Yeah. Graphic designers are known to be big procrastinators. Yeah. And I don't doubt it. So deadlines for sure.
Yeah. I think deadlines are tough too, because as a creative, like, it doesn't mean that you're gonna sit down and it's gonna hit you. Yeah. Like, and you have days that are just like,
that's where the stress comes in. You're like, I'm sitting there like, I only have a few more hours. I gotta come up with something, and then it just hits.
Exactly. Sometimes you sit down in front of a project, you're like, I got it. I know exactly what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be awesome. Yeah. I know, it depends on the day. And sometimes you have all the time in the world, and sometimes the deadline's tomorrow, and you really just gotta work through, like you said, that confidence.
That hitting point. But once it hits, it's like, boom, I'm going for it.
So, you know, you guys interview a lot of designers and have designers working for you. When we put out a post for a graphic designer, junior, senior, regular level position, we literally get hundreds of resumes in a couple of days. What would be your recommendation to someone that's either out of school, or someone that maybe is looking to move from another agency to somewhere else, or someone that's still in school, what would be your biggest recommendation? I don't know, Rick, do you want to go first? What would be your biggest recommendation?
Number one, it sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised. It's just your portfolio and a variety, putting a lot of care into it and actually spending the time to really develop it. We find a lot of times people don't really cross-check things. They're not spell checking. They're not looking at the details that we're going to be looking at. If you're a junior designer, your stuff's not going to be perfect. Our stuff isn't perfect, but at least show the care and the effort you're going to be putting in. Even if you're really talented, I think some of them maybe kind of hold back because maybe they don't want. It's discipline, sitting down, going through it, making everything look great. But I think your portfolio is the biggest driving force that makes us have a decision. So I would say just sitting there and coming up and show a variety of work too. If you're a great designer, you can be a great logo designer, but then when it comes to website design, all of a sudden your typographic skills aren't there, things like that. But we want to see a large variety of different skills, even if they're not perfect, but showing that you do understand the foundation of design and just do your best and put your best work in there.
I think that might be hard for someone coming out of college, but I would agree. Especially if you're going for a more mid-level or senior level job, you better show the breadth of the work that you could do. But someone coming out of college, you might only have 5 or 6 good projects, and that's okay.
And that's even for an experienced designer, 5 to 6 of your best projects. So I may have 20 seconds to look at this, and so if you're gonna put 20 pieces down, I'm gonna pick the top 3, and that's pretty much it.
Right, exactly, yeah. And make sure you front load them, right? You know, because I can't tell you how many I've opened. I'm sure you guys have done the same. If there's something bad within the first page or two, moving on to the next one. Because I'm looking for a portfolio that is a rock star through and through. Sometimes less is more for that reason. Yeah. But I would agree with the spell check stuff.
I think another thing too on the on your resume, a lot of designers, well, it's great seeing a design resume, but they always put that the ranking system, the little star rating of how good they are with the programs.
I don't know.
It's like
I don't really look at that.
Yeah, between the stars and also another cliche thing is attention to detail, which I hope you have attention to detail.
Yeah, you better.
but that's I don't know if there's any resume I haven't read that doesn't say I have strict attention to detail.
The number one no on a graphic design resume. What do you think it is?
Well, for me, it's just that rating, because the first thing I look at is your lowest rating. I'm gonna be like that's what I'm gonna
I would say number 1 is I'm proficient in Microsoft Word.
Yeah, it's like
great.
I would say
awesome. I don't need to know that.
Make sure that you actually laid out your resume interesting, and that it is cleanly laid out.
Yeah,
you should spend
it can be simple.
hours.
Don't put all these colors and icons. Just keep it black and white.
Yeah.
I just want it
But it shouldn't be like words. It shouldn't be it shouldn't look like a salesman put it together. It should look like a designer spent some time making sure that everything was organized
black and
laid
white
out
works.
properly. Yeah, black and white's fine.
Crazy.
And I don't mind color. I do get a little weirded out when it's too colorful.
Like an accent color.
Yeah.
And I think that's the number one thing that like a junior designer does is they overcomplicate everything. Right. Simplify.
Keep it simple.
Keep it super simple.
Yeah, I would say if I open up the web page, what attracts me is a white background with a simple grid of just a simple 3x3 grid and just white background, and that's it.
So, Donna, one of the skills that culture things that we do here is we always say that we're motivated and hungry. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing lately to continue your career.
So recently I got accepted into the graduate program at Georgetown University. It is a master's program in design management and communication, which is essentially what I do now. So I bring a lot of knowledge to it, but also I'm learning a lot more about, I would say the most about strategy behind design, because that is a huge aspect of what we do. So I'm really expanding that side of the design. I'm not just sitting there designing logos. I did that already in undergrad, but now I'm working more on the strategy and the overall concept behind it.
Awesome. Erik, if you were going to talk to someone that's aspiring or is trying to create the great next brand, what would you tell them to? I think any recommendations you can give them?
Authenticity is kind of like the number one, because you think of it's that why, what and how grid. You think of the best brands out there, the ones that they have the why of what they're doing, You think of Apple and Steve Jobs developing that. There was such a passion for the actual development of the product that the brand kind of sits on top of that and grows. And I feel like, a lot of companies, they start branding, they want to, look great, but you could feel there's some sort of disconnect with maybe the way their customer service is handling everything, just because it doesn't trickle down as well if they really don't care about what they're actually doing.
Right.
And I think that's authenticity is like number one.
Awesome. I love that. I read this book, Shoe Dog. It's by Phil Knight, about creating Nike. And talk about a brand that now is one of the biggest. But Adidas was around back then. I think New Balance was another one he mentions in the book a lot. They talk about being a challenger brand. It took him forever, but he was always very authentic about trying to create a better product that an athlete would wear. And that's what he talked about, was always developing a better product. But he spent money on advertising too. And obviously we know Nike is probably the biggest, spends the most money on advertising, but they're also, I would guess, I can't say for sure, but I guess they're the biggest, at least to me, perceived to be the biggest brand out there, at least in sneakers. So, well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk a little bit today.
Thank you.
That was actually really fun. Cheers. We were all interested, passionate. We had enough excitement.
Yeah.
I felt like did it seem comfortable? Did we seem comfortable with this?
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
You didn't get as drunk as you.
That's our. Well, this is my second try.